strong and powerful mycelium, this tangled matrix of confusion. Is it vegetable? Is it animal? Is it mineral? It's all confused. It's difficult to draw hard lines between one and the other. That is guilt. There is a mycelium
in the ego's structure.
In the ego's thought structure. Yes. That is the matrix that gives life to the world of the ego.
Did you know that trees can talk to each other? And it's all due to nature's internet, mycelium. But what is this mysterious mycelium? And how is it related to the mushroom? In this video, let us dispel all myths once and for all. The mushrooms we've all come to know and love are actually the fruiting bodies of fungi. So the mushroom is like the apple. The bulk of the mushroom organism that you can see is actually growing underground, and it's composed of long threads called hyphae. These hyphae grow one cell at a time, and then they branch, growing in every direction that they can, even three-dimensionally, trillions of ends branching. That mass of threads is called mycelium. Think of it like a network or a giant web just growing through the forest, and they actually share the same network design. Like our brain's neural pathways, a mycelium is a network that operates in very much the same way, with electrolytes and electrical mycelium pulses. Is the oldest multicellular organism on Earth. Mycelium fossils dating back 2.4 billion years old were found in the sediments of lava in South Africa. A mycelium can theoretically live forever as long as it has food to grow into, which is why the oldest and largest organism on Earth is a fungus. It's everywhere, and it is the most common species on Earth. So the next time you're out in nature for a hike, remember, without mycelium, trees wouldn't exist. Neither would we.
We're going to say, to allow the ego to function, it requires that mycelium, as plants require that mycelium. And so I thought that's the way to think about guilt. It's not like something you did wrong, something that went bad over here, something that's wrong with me, some flaw, no. The guilt is
it's the foundation of the ego's thought system.
It's a carpet of potentiality. So that the seed of attack or the seed of running away or the seed of judgment can fall on it and sprout into plants that are, disturbing. It can be.
And usually it's attack and defend, and it leads to fear and more sin, ideas of sin.
Mycelium is what is the fabric of what runs our world, and there's the only way to escape it. Only way. You cannot get away from it unless you go to the alternative.
Right.
The Holy Spirit is also a mycelium.
Yeah.
You have two different varieties. Right. There is in other words, I can't confess my way out of guilt. I can't accuse my way out of guilt. I can't mea culpa my way out of guilt. I can't cry my way out of guilt. That mycelium, it is how this place is built. The only way out is to say, stop.
Right.
Stop.
And then once you suspend that, you can make the decision with the Holy Spirit. This is A Course in Miracles. It is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means only that you can elect what you want to take at a given time. The course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. The opposite of love is fear, but what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. This course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. Today's reading is from chapter 19, The Attainment of Peace. And we're reading from section 4, The Obstacles to Peace. As peace extends from deep inside yourself to embrace all the sonship and give it rest, it will encounter many obstacles. Some of them you will try to impose. Others will seem to arise from elsewhere, from your brothers, and from various aspects of the world outside. Yet peace will gently cover them, extending past, completely unencumbered. The extension of the Holy Spirit's purpose from your relationship to others to bring them gently in is the way in which He will bring means and goal in line. The peace He lay deep within you and your brother will quietly extend to every aspect of your life, surrounding you and your brother with glowing happiness and calm awareness of complete protection. And you will carry its message of love and safety and freedom to everyone who draws nigh unto your temple, where healing waits for him. You will not wait to give him this, for you will call to him, and he will answer you, recognizing in your call the call for God. And you will draw him in and give him rest, as it was given you.
So what is peace? What? Let's talk a little bit about peace, because you know on tombstones they write "rest in peace."
Right.
Is that the peace we're talking about?
No, it's the eternal peace that is one with God and always has been with God.
Why do they put that on a tombstone? Why associate peace with death? In the ego's world, we do.
Well,
He's finally at peace.
Right.
He's finally at peace with himself. In other words, death is the only way out.
Right. Death is the only way to peace.
Sleep
Yes,
is
sleep,
a mini death.
Resting in peace. We should all rest in peace without having to die for it. So
No. Our understanding,
Yeah.
our understanding of peace is a cessation of anxiety, a cessation of care, and it's a care and anxiety that's implicit and necessary to my life in the world. In other words, there's no escape. Death and taxes. The only way to get out of here is, you're going to die, and that's the only way you're going to have peace from what this is. Now he says, well,
in accordance with the ego.
I had
yes.
I had a peaceful time. We're talking ego talk,
Yes,
right? Because that's
yes.
what's running its mouth right now.
Yes,
is
okay.
Mr.
Okay.
Mr. Ego. And so what Mr. Ego is looking for is quiescence.
Right.
Quiet. Now, you got to realize two things. One is, in quiet, let's say everything finally calms down. That relationship isn't troubling. Those financial woes aren't troubling. Nothing is troubling. It's really calm. There can be a incredible storm, turmoil, fear. That so-called quiet can act actually as a horrible amplifier of all of the troubles, all of the difficulties. It can be the quiet that just says, whoa, the other shoe is dropping. It's like, look, go watch the movie Alien.
True. And anyone who has not stopped for any period of time to just attempt stillness or quietness can get really, really uncomfortable, because you have to come face to face with yourself, and you realize that your mind is running certain ways and things like that. And so it can often be that in those moments of what people call boredom or whatever else, you could imagine that they want to run away from it. I want to run away, and it's like, let's busy it up.
There is some cliche there, though. And, as you know, I'm a contrarian.
Right.
And so there is some cliche to, I find peace and I'll meet myself. Some people run rabidly, crazily away from themselves into peace.
Oh, okay.
They run away from themselves onto the cushion. Into the religious practice. They dive into it to escape what they're afraid they really are.
Oh, that's true too. Yeah.
To escape from what you are. So there's no guarantee, like I'm saying, in the spiritual peace, in any form of peace that you might achieve, that we understand.
That we understand in the ways of the world.
Now, in the real peace, in true peace, there can be a lot of noise. There can be a lot of trouble. In peace, in actual peace. So that you've got to realize that the peace that this is talking about is not the peace of the meditation cushion.
Right.
And it's not the peace of no wars.
Right.
It's not the peace of, people not fighting. This is the peace that passeth all understanding.
That's true.
And in that peace, the so-called warrior, spiritual warrior, whatever you want to call it, can move with dynamic action and absorption in tasks and doing things and not lose that peace. I'm not sitting here telling you how we can get it. I just want to make a distinction that when we're talking about the obstacles to peace, we're not talking about the neighbor's leaf blower.
Right. Yes. No, then you want to attack him, and that will disturb your peace. But yeah, I agree with you on all of this.
In this peace, let's say I'm in a group of people, because it says this here. Let's say I'm in a group of people, and there is an overwhelming, let's say, an anxiety, a concern, whether it's about relationships, troubles, difficulties, geopolitics, whatever. There's an overarching concern. The peaceful person, the practitioner of peace, or the vehicle or the vessel of this peace, will exude that peace, even though they're involved in those things. It's not like they're sitting in the corner just thumbing through the Course in Miracles while all this trouble is going on.
Right.
They're participating. They might be trying to solve problems. They might even be fretting with other people about the problems, in a sense. We're in this circumstance. We're addressing this circumstance. But that person, aware that I'm in this with the Holy Spirit, this is my peace.
Right.
The Holy Spirit is my peace. And with that peace and going through this difficulty or this trouble, and I'm holding on to that peace, other people say, I find peace with this person's presence.
Right.
Even though you're not spaced out and you're not saying, hey, mellow out, man, it's no problem.
No, your countenance alone can bring that. And that's what it's talking about, extending. And at this point in the Course, if you've been practicing having that relationship with the Holy Spirit, it's beginning to truly work, so that, at least it has for me, where things arise and I don't react to them in the same capacity. And if I do, the longevity of the reaction of a judgment or anything else tends to dissipate or quit more quickly. So here it's saying that as peace extends deep inside yourself, that's the Holy Spirit is now saying, okay, you've left me some openings, you've left me some openings in there between that lockup that you normally have where, there's some space instead of like this, so that it can now have access through me. So there will be times when I extend peace, I wouldn't even know it. And it's just the way you start to carry yourself in the world. And it's saying you're going to, but now there's a big but. It will encounter obstacles. It's like, yeah, I'm working with you. But now that it's going to flow over, it says it can flow over everything. It's going to flow over those obstacles and everything else. But it wants the unimpeded. It wants to have access
Well, let's
unimpeded.
talk about that flowing over obstacles, because it mentions that flowing over obstacles. Let's be clear. My body-mind, this body, this mind, to a large degree is invested in this egoic reality, in this illusion.
Right.
It's going to stay there. That's where it is. That's where, in a sense, the work is. The body is a communication device. The sonship, even the fact of separation, being a communication device to bring me along. Okay.
Right.
So that's where I'm at. That's what's going on with me. In other words, a part of me will always be part of the problem. Part of what we call the problem. So I might be nuts. I might be the one that loses my mind over a problem. I might be visibly fretting because the body-mind such that I'm built enters into those concerns, and it's part of what it is. Its nerve endings are near the surface. And to expect to expect this body-mind, let's say, to be Mr. Mellow in the middle of some horrible situation, it's unfair, and it's attack on that body mind to expect it
to now give you guilt and sin upon
to expect
you.
it. So what are we talking about? We're talking about this body mind full of troubles, full of thin skin, that can be easily offended and worried and upset, latches on to the Holy Spirit. Help me out here, help me out here. And the Holy Spirit says, I've got this. We're under control. It doesn't make you different than you are.
Right.
It doesn't make your skin suddenly thick, but it can if that's required. It doesn't make you suddenly brave, but it can if that's what's required. So you don't want to say what the Holy Spirit, because what it might do is it might give her thick skin. It might make her brave. It might call in that environment what is required, because the Holy Spirit's dealing with truth.
Right.
It's not dealing with me by myself. Once I invite in the Holy Spirit, it's dealing with my whole environment that's the environment of concern. So that's where don't restrict the Holy Spirit. That person over there might rise to the occasion. That person over there might rise to the occasion. There might be a glimmer of hope or peace or whatever coming from over yonder when I don't feel like I have it.
Right. It's the moment at the toll booth.
It's exactly the moment at the toll booth.
when the gate won't go up. It's that the extension, that the Holy Spirit is there to have me open enough so that it will extend to every aspect of my life. And then it will carry that message of love and safety and freedom to everyone who draws nigh it says, unto your temple, where healing waits for him. And so, again, it's giving the overarching aspect of what peace will do paired with the Holy Spirit.
I just want to emphatically say, the Holy Spirit's not here to turn me into a spiritual hero, some kind of demigod of peace and tranquility, that other people come and fall at my feet and say, you are so peaceful. What are you doing to achieve this? That's not what this is about. It's about me contacting the Holy Spirit, making the request, then having faith and trust and confidence that partnership is active. Then look for it. Because if I'm in my freak out mode, and I can't settle in, the Holy Spirit is still working there.
Yes, it is.
It does not require this body mind to do the work I require, having made the request.
Right.
Do you understand?
I do, but I also believe that once you begin to open yourself to the Holy Spirit working through you, you'll find...
No, things get better. I'm just saying, don't get the distortion of thinking that somehow I'm going to rise to be some sort of a paragon of...
No, because then your ego's involved. That's the ego again.
Paragraph 2.
Okay.
All this will you do.
All right.
Yet the peace that already lies deeply within must first expand and flow across the obstacles you placed before it. This will you do, for nothing undertaken with the Holy Spirit remains unfinished. You can indeed be sure of nothing you see outside you. But of this you can be sure. The Holy Spirit asks that you offer him a resting place where you will rest in him. He answered you and entered your relationship. Would you not now return his graciousness and enter into a relationship with him? For it is he who offered your relationship the gift of holiness, without which it would have been forever impossible to appreciate your brother. So what I hear it saying here is that I would have been locked out. Do you understand? In terms of what I was just saying, I would have been locked out of understanding that the great God, gamesman, player of this thing, Holy Spirit, basis of knowledge, would not necessarily be able to or even have to work through an environment that I find myself in. We've got to, I think, get myself separated from the idea that somehow the Holy Spirit is going to come into me like I'm possessed by certain characteristics. It's far subtler and more wonderful than that.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to be prepared to let that happen. Yes, what you said is true. I will extend my ability to handle panic. I will extend my ability to take, to be tolerant, and all these other, qualities of the teacher. But I will be, to some degree, caught with what I'm built out of as having thin skin or a panic response or PTSD or whatever it is I'm stuck with. Those can be healed in time within my storyline. It does not stop the Holy Spirit from accomplishing what it needs to accomplish using the rest of it.
Right, and because it's already been accomplished, and because peace, being an attribute of God, is everywhere at all time, it's us becoming aware it's the awareness of it actually, as you're going through something, that it gets, for me, I don't know, it gets easier to call upon it and recognize, oh, that was my error. And if it was my error in understanding my brother or myself, I can now call upon it, and I can actually benefit from the sense of not getting as jagged or wrangled as I used to. That's the way I experience it.
I agree.
Okay, paragraph 3. The gratitude you owe to him, he asks, but that you receive for him. And when you look with gentle graciousness upon your brother, you are beholding him, for you are looking where he is, and not apart from him. You cannot see the Holy Spirit, but you can see your brothers truly, and the light in them will show you all that you need to see. When the peace in you has been extended to encompass everyone, the Holy Spirit's function here will be accomplished. What need is there for seeing then? When God has taken the last step himself, the Holy Spirit will gather all the thanks and gratitude that you have offered him and lay them gently before his Creator in the name of his most holy Son. And the Father will accept them in his name. What need is there of seeing in the presence of his gratitude?
So the gratitude that I owe to him, he asks that you receive for him. So we have, again and again, it's the reflexive quality of the universe that we live in. The Holy Spirit's world is this reflexive quality. And I owe gratitude to him, let's say. I owe gratitude for the ability to see the brothers as united to me, for the ability to see that we have this oneness, that my own sense of powerlessness or weakness or fallibility or whatever it is actually compensated in the holy relationship, is compensated by a new interpretation of the world that I live in. The brother is there as a parent supports, a parent, complementarity.
Yeah, to me, it's saying that because I can't see the Holy Spirit at work, he's going to let me know how I am being, and vice versa, by showing up within the brother. It's going to be something that will be apparent to me, that there's not a rub there. There's something else that happened. I dropped my judgment about that person or about myself in relationship to that person. And I will see in the next encounter with my brother what I made as a decision to be with the Holy Spirit, because the Holy Spirit is going to use each instance for those kinds of things. It's beautiful that way. He's always going to have some reflection in my life as to whether or not I've partnered with him or decided to be in my suffering and pain with my ego's mind. That's what I think.
Well, the line saying that I owe gratitude to him, let's say I owe gratitude to the Holy Spirit. Now he's saying the way that gratitude is expressed is that that I am willing to receive, that you receive for him. He asked, but that you receive for him. So I receive the sense of gratitude. It's not like I go, Holy Spirit, I'm offering, place obeisance at your, lotus feet kind of a thing. It's not like I have the ability or the responsibility for doing that. It's only asking that when I see that, I think revelation's the wrong word, but I get the miracle or the holy instant, and it creates in me a sense of gratitude for the fact that I have thin skin, but what do you know? She's got thick skin. I'm freaked out. What do you know? She's not. And I can kind of feel this gratitude for the way this works. And this works, put little air quotes on it, that's the Holy Spirit.
Right.
This works.
Right.
That's the Holy Spirit.
That's right.
And that's the gratitude.
Yeah.
That make sense?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
What is there else in there? Is there more?
No, just that God will take the last step himself. The Holy Spirit will gather all the thanks and gratitude that you've offered him and lay them gently before his Creator in the name of his most holy Son, which, it's one of those all-encompassing. You got the Holy Spirit, you got the Creator, you got the Holy Son, which I am, and it all seems to be different names, but it ends up being the same name for the same thing, because now the atonement has dawned on your mind. That's the way I see it.
Well, in the aspect of seeing, where it's actually saying what need is there of seeing. Seeing meaning I can't see the Holy Spirit.
That's right.
And it's saying, what need do you have of that? You see now your brothers in this changed light. In other words, I'm seeing the work of the Holy Spirit all around me. It's like those old, like the Invisible Man movies where you never saw the Invisible Man. You only saw these gloves floating around the room, or you saw his hat going on, this nothing. And so the hat going on, or the gloves moving around in space, or the footprints, or the on the floor, that's the Holy Spirit's presence. In other words, there's the evidence is in the brother, is in the sonship, is in the changed perception. That's the evidence.
Yes.
I don't need to see the Holy Spirit. Those eyes are not required.
Right. It's an unseen, and in fact, a lot of times, what I think I'm seeing in the other as perhaps changed is kind of an imperceptible sense that there's no tension there. There's no, by my not judging, then they don't judge. And so the reflections come back and forth, and everything seems to have a softness to it, I call it, a sort of a softness to it by being in the presence of my brothers. Now I know the Holy Spirit is in the air. It's around. It just feels that way to me.
I agree. The lack of charge, you can almost say, is the presence of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's
not seen. There's not something I'm seeing. It's a sense that doesn't really involve my senses, as in the typical five senses. It's something, the eternal self recognizing. It's an unseen thing. I don't know how to explain it.
Right.
You know it when it happens.
Well, so we're going on now to part A. We're continuing on, and there it presents 4 obstacles to peace.
Right.
And each of those obstacles have a detail. In other words, it's a little bit like, well, here's the obstacle, and then here's the sort of the active agent inside of that obstacle.
Right.
Or it doesn't necessarily have to be an obstacle, but it's the active agency, so that there's the 4 obstacles to peace. And then it's got these agencies that are somehow within each of those obstacles. And those 4 obstacles to peace are, first of all, the first obstacle to peace is the desire to get rid of peace.
Right.
The desire to get rid of it. Now you'd say to yourself right off the bat, get rid of peace. Why?
Right.
That makes no sense. Why would I get rid of peace? Well, that goes on to the peace of what? The rest in peace? Well, that's a kind of a peace you might want to, that's the peace. No, that's the kind of peace that's the only peace we know. And so that the desire to get rid of peace has broader implications. And what it says is that it has to do with the attraction of guilt. Right. So that's where that is. Now, the next obstacle to peace is the belief the body is valuable for what it offers. So I'm looking to the body to provide something for me, to give me something in a way. Like the body has a value in and of itself for the way that it can change my reality, make my reality more useful, beneficial in any way.
Right.
Positive or negative. But
Right.
we need the body for that. And the subtitle on that one is The Attraction of Pain.
Yeah.
Now, again, they're deeper. These are huge
Right,
topics.
because there's no way that we can consider that I'm attracted to pain, So yeah, we'll get into what.
Yeah,
those are.
and
Yeah.
I want to flesh it out a little bit just with some notes that we took before we dive into actually the text, because we're talking a lot of pages.
Right.
And I thought it's necessary to review these 4
Right.
in one place, so we have that in our mind before going forward. And then the attraction of death. The attraction of death. You say, well, no, I'm not really attracted. I'm just trying to say, just check in with yourself. Do you want to get rid of peace? Well, not really. The belief the body is valuable for what it offers. I don't know. I never really think about it that way. The attraction of death. Well, I'm kind of scared of death. I'm not really attracted to death at all.
Well, and in the course, it mentions that the attraction and the repulsion end up being the same thing. In other words, that which I push away and say that's not a part of, I'm not thinking about death every day. How can I be attracted to it? That kind of thing. But because, if I see death is on the horizon for someone, or I see an accident and somebody dies on the side of the road or whatever, there is because from one body to another, it's like that could happen to me. You think it has to do with your desire to, that poor person. No, you're going, thank God it's not me. I mean, if you're really honest about it, it's like that could have happened to me, particularly if it's a couple of steps in front of you on the highway and some collision happened and you're like, oh yeah, there goes the ambulance with a dead body inside of it, and you're going, it's not like God plays and you're with your head down and everything. Those poor souls. It's usually like, thank God, a few seconds before.
Exactly. A lot of our compassion is there, but for the grace of God go I.
Yeah. That attraction repulsion. So the word attraction itself can be, in our language, would be, I hate that. I hate death. This is the same thing. And according to the Course, attraction and the desire to get rid of it are the same thing that cause it to be manifest in our life.
Now the essential, in this case, it's a rub. It's not an amplification of the attraction of death, but the rub within the attraction of death is that in fact the body is incorruptible.
Right.
So that despite all of the obvious markers of aging, sickness, and death, the body is incorruptible. And then the fourth is the fear of God. Okay, so that is easier to relate to. The fear of God. Anytime you've got an incredibly powerful being and you're out of touch, just vastly, it's like Dr. Manhattan in The Watchmen. It's like it creates the peace of detente, the peace of everyone's afraid to move. That's the peace you get when you have an untrustworthy but maximum power entity. Right. And the best thing you can hope for is to create walls against that, so that they can't find me, they can't see me, because I don't trust them. I don't want to act out in front of them, but I can't really trust that infinitely powerful being. That's why we fear God, is because we don't know God. God's separate from us. Right. Since you don't know God, and as they say, to know God is to be God, so that you have to share in God to know anything about God. So when you get into that kind of language, and you go, well, that's not possible. So you've got this idea that God remains a stranger. As Thomas Merton, I think, even called him the holy other. And I don't mean H-O-L-Y. It's W-H-O-L-L-Y. The holy other, completely different. God is the completely different. That's going to be hard to be happy with that. If you have something out there that's totally alien to me.
Right. The body-mind complex of the ego.
The part of this, the wrinkle in this is, to solve this, is the lifting of the veil.
Yes.
The lifting of the veil. So, did you have anything on? Let's just go through each one. So we've got, just as a quick review, peace. I want to get rid of it. Number one. I believe that the body offers me stuff that's useful. That's number two. That's an obstacle to peace. Number 3 is the attraction of death, maybe for whatever reason. And then the fear of God. Those are my 4 obstacles to peace. So do you have anything on? Let's just go into the first one. We're going to try to run through all 4.
Mm-hmm.
And just as a fair warning type thing, we might dive into each one. We'll put our heads together after this and figure out, but we might dive into each one in the same way that we ever did later, because each one is quite long. So in the interim, I suggest, if you're interested in this thing, is to read this stuff, have it open in front of you as we go through this, and challenge what we're saying, or come up with your own ideas, take some notes, or however you want to deal with it. But let's, for now, just get a little bit of a better idea of why these particular things would be obstacles to peace, which might even help us even understand what peace is.
Right.
Did you have anything on the obstacles to peace?
Well, in the very, very beginning, it just went to say that that I must keep peace in order to extend it, and peace is home is going to be the call to others. But there's a barrier and they talk about this barrier that is like sand or like a feather and things like that, and that the remnant of attack that I cherish still against my brother is the first obstacle to peace. That remnant of attack that I cherish is still what is keeping that first obstacle to peace. You're not quite willing to give it up. There's this little wall, and that's what the wall. You probably have stuff about that wall against my brother. This holds creation out of my awareness. I'm not aware of it because of that wall that I put between my brother, because I still wish to judge him and attack him and make him separate from myself.
I'm going to work backwards in my notes on this. The first obstacle is the desire to get rid of it.
Right.
Working backwards from that, it says you basically want peace. Everybody really, really wants peace. So why do I push it away? The Course is not addressing people cold turkey here. It's not like, okay, you've not done any of the work. The Course in Miracles is assuming you have already made this request.
Right.
And yet you're still capitulating on whether you want peace or not.
Complete.
Yeah. And so it says you want peace, and yet you push away. I want to reserve the option to reject my brother. I just want to keep that option.
Right, that's it.
And the moments when I exercise the option to reject my brother, to reject my circumstances, and the brother that I can reject can be me and this body. Mm-hmm. And my desire to reject this body and stuff is also my partnership with the egoic thought system. So I want to be sure that option stays open, because I might need it. Mm-hmm. Right. Well, and
we think we need it. Yeah.
So right.
Yeah, for protection, for keeping an individual identity intact. There's all kinds of reasons for it.
The embedded purpose of my distance from my brother. I did that for a reason, just to keep me safe. It's to build my own world. Right. Now, what the Course is saying at this part in our process, I've lost confidence in that world. I've lost confidence in the world of separation.
Right.
And so I've decided to basically call in the Holy Spirit. But why is it not complete? Why? Even in spite of that, I'm still holding on to some remnant, as you were saying, of these walls. I don't want them to go away completely. It's a guy's pocket full of dimes in the Poseidon Adventure when they were going to go on their escape, and he just decided to keep his dime collection, which screwed up the whole thing. And
that boat was going to sink.
So it makes, by holding on to that little remnant of doubt and those walls you're talking about, in other words, I want to retain the option, because I don't know when the Russians or the rapist or the terrible neighbor or the attacking dog or whatever aspect of my environment, I don't know at what point those are going to rush in as extremely unhappy witnesses and betray the Holy Spirit's all well-wishing. Like the Holy Spirit was not quite honest with me that these things can still get at me.
That would be a good ego trick. That's what the ego would say.
Well, and that's what it's saying. It's saying basically is by retaining that reserve, it makes it so that the world of doubts, it is as chaotic as the ego's thought system is intended to be anyway.
Right.
And it says that this flippant idea is no longer systematic within me. The idea of rejecting my brother is no longer like hardcore.
Right.
But it does come out selectively to just lay on this person or that situation or that in unpredictable ways. But it says it's now homeless. That sense of whatever is homeless. So that's why have we done that? And then, so it's saying that these illusions have ended. The walls are down. The peace does flow over them. In other words, the peace is flowing over those. When I've called on the Holy Spirit, as I said earlier, when I call on the Holy Spirit for something, no matter what my predisposition is to doubt, to second guess, to maintain a reserve of attack, having made a real request, because my lack of confidence in the ecosystem is real.
Right.
It's now there. The Holy Spirit will flow through those things.
Yeah.
And it's only to my attraction to pain. What is it? What was the
It's the attraction to guilt.
Yeah, my attraction to guilt.
Of guilt, I guess.
The attraction of guilt.
Yes.
Is what keeps me in the game. So guilt still has something, and we had, I thought, a really good conversation about it. So do you have some more on this hold the walls and whatnot?
Well, I had just said that there was an equivalent to the I'm trying to get rid of peace is the same as saying I'm trying to get rid of the Holy Spirit, which is all pervasive. So if I'm putting up these obstacles to peace, and I don't call on him, I'm actually rejecting the Holy Spirit's intervention. I'm just saying, that's, I don't want it. It's to actually push the Holy Spirit's ability.
This is assuming that you have asked it in.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Once you've asked the Holy Spirit.
Once you've asked it in, it's different. Yeah. But there was this part there that said the whole thing, that particular thing, the idea that I could possibly get rid of the Holy Spirit produces conflict. It produces an inner conflict, which, I've already called him in, but now I've got this sort of, I'm still kind of in my ego ideas and everything else. But it says this wish to have the Holy Spirit it causes that conflict to be uprooted, floating aimlessly. I thought that was, because it has no purpose now. So that is sort of the sensation of that it doesn't have a place to really grip onto, because you've actually begun to do that partnership with the Holy Spirit. And so it says that it only causes tiny interruptions, but there's still some attraction to sin.
I worked with a guy a long time ago. I worked with a guy from a culture that is steeped in what they call macho. Macho is very, very important. It's like the virility of the male figure,
Yes.
And one of his favorite sayings was, I may be married, but I'm not castrated.
Oh, yes.
Okay. So that is driving with the brakes on. This partner is I've dedicated myself to this partner called Holy Spirit. I've dedicated myself, but by God, hey, a man's a man. Come on. And the thing is, nobody asked him to be castrated. A complete dedication, a complete acceptance of the marriage vows. This is the woman I'm in relationship with, is castration. Now, he has told himself that.
Right.
He has told himself that.
Right. Yeah.
That's a way to frighten himself into, and this is what the reason I'm saying is because this is what we do with peace. This is why I want to get rid of peace, and why the attraction of guilt, why I have these subversive attractions.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. The other thing I had was only that when you make decisions with the ego's world, I have this little circle with, it's going to be guilt, fear, and sin are going to be constantly circulating around. That is the ego's world. It wants me to be constantly in a sense of being guilty, and therefore I want to project it onto somebody else. I will use both attack and defend in that particular world. And fear and sin and guilt seem to go round and round and round. But if I'm
going to suggest that you tell the example, if you don't mind, that we gave, because I thought that was an excellent illustration.
The one about the person who I was working, because I sing at the Catholic Church, and so I had a disaster last weekend. for me it was my mini disaster, and so the accompanist on the organ, she had just had cataract surgery and stuff, and so her eyes were not working the same. Her glasses weren't going to work, and she tried having them off and then having them on. One eye was going to take over versus the other. So her mistakes became my mistakes, became this catapult of, it was one of my worst nightmares as far as the way, music ministry was supposed to be, or your performance. So at any rate, I ruminated over it, and I recognized that I wasn't happy with it. And so when I saw the priest the following Saturday, I told him, I said, did you know that, I said, I felt really bad. I told him that I felt really bad about what happened and everything else. I said, it was awful. It's my worst nightmare. And I said, did you know that she had cataract surgery? And he goes, no. And I recognized I wanted to make myself better, because,
you wanted to fix it.
It was her fault.
You wanted to fix it.
Yeah. And I didn't want to take the blame for how much the mass got messed up that day for that whole thing. But I didn't recognize, even until after I spoke to him, that I was attempting to pass the whole blame. I wanted to say, I recognize my poor performance, but there was real reason for this happening, and that's why, and so there is this tendency to want to pass on what my ego considers, this is my place, this is where I perform, this is where, and then somebody else just messed it up for me.
Well, I just thought it summarizes the problem with guilt, which is in this amplification section here, the attraction of guilt. How does that work? Why would there be attraction to guilt? So I like this example because in this, Joanna, who wants to show up and sing and do a good job and perform well and be worshipful, or whatever it is that she wants to accomplish as an ego in this situation, she shows up, it's a disaster, right? Missing some lead lines, dropping out completely, singing the wrong stuff, missing notes. The whole thing is kind of messed up. And there's a general quality of being messed up. And the accompanist who had the cataract surgery, she's not helping any at all, because she's kind of like all over the place and leading everybody off a cliff. So that's a problem. So Joanna is going, I don't want anybody to think bad about me. I don't want the priest to think that I'm okay with this, And so she goes to him and apologizes. But I asked her, I said, what if you had just apologized and said, mea culpa, my fault, never happen again, and then you walk away. You walk away. Said, you're going to feel anger at the accompanist, aren't you? You're going to want to attack the accompanist because she didn't be ruminating. She didn't get the punishment she deserves for having cataract surgery. She needs to be implicated in this. I don't do stuff wrong like that. I don't mess up, okay? Right. She did it to me. She did it to me. Adam and Eve, it's me with everything. It's like it is such a common pattern.
Right.
It's like, yeah, I did it, but you know what? It's his fault. That's totally what we do, this deflect. And the whole course is talking about this, to become aware of this transference of guilt from myself to others. And what ends up happening is, in her case, she transfers the guilt. I know I'm speaking for her. I just think it's a crystal clear example. She transfers the guilt onto the other, and she says, I know I messed up, but it was really her fault. She tripped me. And then he goes, okay, I agree. She wants him to go, you would never do anything wrong. I know it's all her fault, And then I said, do you feel...
I don't think that I'm thinking that. But
no, of course not. Yeah. It's the dynamic.
Yeah.
So then So then you get a chance to deflect and you blame the other. But then you go, I'm being insincere. You know, I mean, that's a lie. I know that it's not their fault. And then I feel bad.
I know,
and
then I'm guilty. I'm guilty for blaming the other one.
I feel guilty about blaming the other.
And just keep going.
So it chases. So the point of this is the attraction of guilt is that it seems like it can really solve something by transferring. You had explained guilt as because I got worked up. Okay, I got worked up this morning, you know, when we were kind of reviewing this. I said, guilt, it's this guilt thing again. What is guilt? And she gives me the textbook answers, and I'm starting to complain. I said, there isn't one single person online, I don't care what luminary of the Course in Miracles with 85 years of experience, no one is giving me an adequate explanation of guilt. I'm still stuck with this guilt. You know, it's like hand in the cookie jar kind of guilt. And there's something there that I personally have to understand. So she's patient and works through it with me. And she finally said it's like a mycelium. Now, mycelium is the deep life structure in the ground that allows, you know, the mycelium is the middle ground between mineral life and actual vegetative life. It's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, it's kind of fungal. I mean, it's kind of that woven fungal stuff that you see like under your, I don't know, leaves and things like that. You know, it's this thing that it's a matrix that kind of hold, but it's maybe not seen.
But the mycelium is the foundation of vegetative life, and a strong and powerful mycelium, this tangled matrix of confusion. Is it vegetable? Is it animal? Is it mineral? It's all confused. It's difficult to draw hard lines between one and the other. That is guilt. There is a mycelium
in the ego's structure.
In the ego's thought structure, that is the matrix that gives life to the world of the ego. Maybe it'd be more appropriate to say death, but we're going to say to allow the ego to function, it requires that mycelium, as plants require that mycelium. And so I thought that's the way to think about guilt. It's not like something you did wrong, something that went bad over here, something that's wrong with me, some flaw, no. The guilt is
it's the foundation of the ego's thought system.
It's a carpet of potentiality, so that the seed of attack or the seed of running away or the seed of judgment can fall on it and sprout into plants that are disturbing. It can be.
And usually it's attack and defend, and it leads to fear and more sin, ideas of sin, which is, tied to the separation of, that is other than me, that's not my fault.
But this mycelium is what is the fabric of what runs our world. And there's the only way to escape it. The only way. You cannot get away from it unless you go to the alternative.
Right.
The Holy Spirit is also a mycelium.
Yeah.
You have two different varieties.
Right.
There is in other words, I can't confess my way out of guilt. I can't accuse my way out of guilt. I can't mea culpa my way out of guilt. I can't cry my way out of guilt. That mycelium, it is how this place is built. The only way out is to say, stop.
Right.
Stop.
And then once you suspend that, you can make the decision with the Holy Spirit, of which I wrote that, the Holy Spirit, again, just like with the ego's decision world, you're going to have guilt, fear, sin, and an attack and defend structure. And with the decisions with the Holy Spirit, you're going to have peace as your primary function, and then love and joy will come out of it. And that is truth. It's all truth. And that forms an extension, and it extends and then becomes all encompassed. Through the extension, all things are encompassed. Whereas attack and defend is a constricting, it holds it within a structure that is constricting and doesn't allow for any extension.
Well, constricting meaning that you are bound into attack and defend. There's no way out of attack and defend. There's no way out of the egoic thought system save that the alternative, which is, and the alternative requires, and we've talked about this in different places, it requires faith that there is an alternative.
Right.
And I can't have faith that there is an alternative until I've gotten some happy witnesses, until I've seen that, yes, sometimes things go right when they shouldn't. I think the Holy Spirit's involved. I think something else is at work here. Those things, I require witnesses. I require those victories to the soul, so to speak, or I can't just divest myself of the ego's system, because it feels like annihilation to do that without the alternative.
Yeah. Right. I have a couple other things. I don't know if you want me to go.
Fire away.
So that calls in by pairing with the Holy Spirit in your decision making. Then you invite in the holy instant. Love enters, and they use a sort of a table of plenty, a table of that's there is set before us with the Holy Spirit, and in that moment, the Holy Spirit, Jesus, your brothers are made welcome. All of it enters in that holy instant.
As long as someone is potentially guilty. I know this is a cliche with the Course, but everyone is guilty. If someone is guilty, everyone is guilty. So that the Course is an absolutist thing of that alternative that we're going for. You know, we got this mycelium of guilt, and that's always the potential of things going wrong. We need that alternative mycelium, which is the potential that all things are always right.
Right.
And
they haven't been affected at all by the ego's thought
No matter what happens, no matter what goes quote unquote wrong, it can go right, because that's a mistake. That's an error as opposed to a sin.
Right.
If you I mentioned to Joanna, I said, what's this deal? Okay, so I cut myself. I cut my arm, and that's, let's say, the crucifixion, right? Or that's the sin or the flaw. It's a cut, and then I say, watch the healing, the healing of the body. And the scar tissue comes back, and then it might leave a fine line. It might go away. That cut is always there, even after it heals. So it's not correct to say that the cut is a crucifixion and that the healing of the cut is the resurrection. It's not correct, because both of them are being proved out in the body.
Right.
That's inaccurate. We have to lose this idea that the things that are witnessed in the body. So take Jesus on the cross as a for instance. That's the wound. That's the difficulty. And then the resurrection is like a healed crucifixion. No, that's wrong. The death as a thing, the resurrection negates the crucifixion.
Right.
That's the purpose. Now, this is the difference between mainstream Christianity as believed and the Course in Miracles. The Course in Miracles says the resurrection negates. Why? Because you cannot kill God.
Right. You can't kill God.
The resurrection proves one thing. You cannot kill God. So I know on Good Friday you think you killed God. You did not. You did a lot of bad stuff to Jesus.
To a body.
Yeah, but you didn't kill God.
Right.
Why? Because you can't. The resurrection is the belief that since you cannot kill God, all of that stuff is not worth ruminating on. The crucifixion.
Right. No, it's not worth it. I think I wrote here that that welcome that we invite in Jesus means that at last I have forgiven Jesus and the Son of God. He was the symbol of our sin, so he had to die instead of us, because he was the symbol of it. That's, to the ego, sin is death, and atonement is achieved through murder. So it thinks that it can make something atone by murdering it, which is I can't even imagine, because I don't think that I think like that, in my egoic mind. But
no, you imagine it like this: the ego looks at the world and says, "There's a bunch of problems here." Since they're quote unquote sins, they can't really be solved. It's just too hard to get that person. I'm going to change that person, that situation, and I'm going to massage this. I'm going to massage
so just
that.
get
I'm
rid
going to take care of this. So get rid of it. So you just start getting rid of the big problems, and then you're left with a bunch of little problems. And then the ego looks at it and goes, well, still problems. They're little, but still problems. So let's get rid of the little problems. This goes on and on and on until the last problem is me.
Yeah.
And then I kill myself. And that's why the ego's way of solving this is ultimately nihilism. It's annihilation of everything that exists. That and that it will never tell you that that's the strategy. Now, what forms does it take? Separation from those people. Yeah, since I can't get rid of all those boneheads over there, I can't change them all, I'll just put a wall between me and them. And so I don't kill them, even though I would like to, according to the Course in Miracles. I just put up a wall between me and them. And that is the way the ego deals with it. So we end up with a bunch of compartments and containerization. Silos. Lots of silos.